I got the first 4 Assassin's Creed games, but the first one on Steam's like broken.
Oh yeah, because it's like a console. Is it because it like the
I
port's
don't know
bad?
what's up with that. But
Or it's just
like,
'cause it's so old that the heart-
stutters.
yeah.
I don't know. It just stutters a lot, and I feel like it's something that could probably get easily fixed. But
If you just Google it.
I don't know how many people are playing Assassin's
It's
Creed
popular
1.
enough where someone probably fixed it.
But also, as someone who has still tried to play Assassin's Creed 1, it is a dull game. There's a reason that it's not the one that... There's a reason people remember 2
2
and
is really
2.5.
good.
And
2
like
is good.
3.
I really liked Black Flag.
Black Flag was good.
What's
I never played the one like in the Americas, the third one.
The Liberation? Or
Yeah, I never played that one.
Revolutionary War. There's an alt history DLC where Washington makes himself king, like a monarch instead of a
Yeah?
president. You have to take him down.
Oh, that's cool.
That was pretty funny. But isn't there like a spin-off of Black Flag that was set in the Americas as well?
I don't know.
It's like
I
Rogue. Is it Assassin's Creed Rogue? Anyways, because that one has Percy Rock in it. Like it has the Gaspésie as part of an area you can visit. It's like the only game I've ever seen.
I
where
didn't
you can
know
visit
about that.
It's because one of the guys who worked at the Ubisoft
It might be a
Montreal office-
DLC or something.
Maybe
I
it
don't
is.
know.
I don't remember if it's a
Because
DLC
I
or like a
know there
spin-off.
was the second one, and then there was like 3 something. It was like the 2.5. the second
Yeah,
one
it
that
might
came
be
out.
something like that. Where it
And
was
I
like
remember I played 2 and that one, and I played Black Flag,
best pirate game that came out.
and then I got the one in Britain for free.
Oh,
at
Syndicate,
one
yeah,
point.
and it was free on
Syndicate.
gold. That was the first one I played.
Yeah.
Syndicate was
one,
good.
that one was interesting because I remember like that one. I remembered a while before I'd played like Black Flag and stuff. Like, oh, those are cool games.
I mean, there was
But in-
guns. That was pretty rad.
Yeah, and in those it was like, the thing is, Syndicate does a lot of the name dropping.
Oh
which
yeah,
I
there's
found
like
very
every side quest is like
grating.
a historical
At the time, as someone who
figure.
didn't really understand history, I think like it didn't bother me as much. But I feel like now, if I tried to play it, I'm like, oh, and there's Darwin.
Yeah, there's Darwin,
Whoa.
Dickens. I think Florence Nightingale is a character. in one of
Nightingale.
them.
I don't remember Dickens, but I remember Nightingale. I remember Darwin specifically.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
like
There's a side quest with Charles
him.
Darwin. Yeah.
And I like in the back of my mind, I'm like, I can see why, because Syndicate I don't think was very popular. I don't know. I wasn't in like.
Well, it was
the
coming off of
game
Unity,
reviews.
which was like the least popular at the time, but is like really good now. Because it was a good game. It was just buggy on release, and they
Yeah,
fixed it.
That's the one where I saw some. I saw some, like cutscenes, like with Napoleon and stuff, and I thought that was fun. But that's like the type of fun name drop. Like it's when they're like, part of it is like one of the missions is like you just meet Napoleon because he's shit is happening.
Yeah,
in the
'cause it's
revolution,
during the French
and it makes
Revolution.
sense. But the only reason Charles Darwin is there is because it's the UK,
yeah, and you know
you
Charles
happen
Darwin.
to be there. It's like there's literally no other reason. Like Charles Darwin, as significant as he is to the evolution of thought and science, in terms of like crime and politics.
I don't remember what that mission is about.
I remember it was something sciencey. That's
Probably,
all. It
probably
was
to
like
steal like his specimens
the-
back. or
yeah, there's a
something.
specimen or vials or chemicals, something. I don't know.
Imagine if they did that in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's just like you meet Plato and Socrates, even though they're not like this at all the same time period.
Well, what the time period for Odyssey? What is the time? I mean, it's like semi-mythical for Odyssey as well.
Yeah, because there's like gods and stuff, but I don't know if it's actually set in a historical period. It might be like the Peloponnesian War.
It is because it's between Athens and Sparta,
Sparta.
right? Because Athens and Sparta
It's
are
loosely
fighting.
based on the Peloponnesian War.
So it has to be during. So maybe you meet Thucydides
or
at some
something.
point.
Yeah.
You meet Thucydides on his travels, and you meet whoever Thucydides would talk about. You meet. Well, you do meet Alcibiades.
Yeah. Who's,
Or
who would
Alcibiades.
would actually make a great character in an Assassin's Creed game.
I mean, he did, so as far as I'm aware.
He's a crazy.
I don't know.
dude.
I never played Odyssey, but
Me neither.
I know he's there, and I know Socrates is there as
Yeah,
well.
I'm sure.
So there is that. It's just it makes more sense because the Peloponnesian War, and they're the few people we actually know existed at the time, as opposed to
England, where there's so many that it just gets
19th
kind of
century
grating.
Britain, where it's like you like fucking flip a coin. Oh, there's Friedrich Engels. Like
I
he's
guess
a-
yeah, Karl. I think Karl Marx might be in that game as well.
I hadn't gone that far, but
I wonder.
But like Marx would make. I don't know. For me, it makes a bit more sense just because of the.
do you think he's like Flanderized though? Because all of them are a little bit. They're all like kind of stereotypes of who they were in real life.
Which makes sense. That's why Darwin is the science guy. Anyway, I think that was some good small talk.
Yeah, I'm ready to start if you are.
All right. Well, you're the one who's bringing the subject today, so I think you should take it away.
We should
this
just do
time.
the intro though. We should introduce ourselves.
Yeah, you should do the intro. Start up.
Oh,
It's
so
your turn.
welcome to the We Weren't There podcast. I'm your host Max,
And I'm Ben, your co-host.
and today we're doing a bit of a different episode. We're taking questions from all our friends and family to answer.
Yes.
Uh,
well, from your friends. and
My
family.
friend, my friends and family.
Because I don't know any of the questions. I don't know any of the answers. I don't have any advanced knowledge. I mean, I might have advanced knowledge. I'll find out. But this is going to be an interesting one for me because you'll be we'll be learning many things instead of just a lot about one thing.
They're a lot shorter than what we usually do, but I tried to do at least a paragraph per answer, on, like, except for the ones that were really vague. I included a few that were really short just because they're really interesting, but often there's just not a clear answer. So I'm just going to present to you the question. We'll talk about it a bit, then I'll tell you the information I gather, and you can fill in if there's anything you know that I missed.
How dare you introduce nuance? Why can't you just have a simple answer for everything?
No, a lot of these are actually harder than you would think, but I did learn a lot of really interesting stuff. So the first question I got was, how did influenza, so the Spanish flu, affect World War One?
That's a very complex question to start off.
So, brief history of the Spanish flu. Brief history. It actually didn't originate in Spain, contrary to popular belief. That's just because Spain was the first one to widely report on the outbreak. And that's because they had a lot less censorship because it was a democratic government and they weren't involved in the war. So there's no wartime censorship or any of those like circumstances that come into play. It actually originated, as best as we can tell, in Kansas in the United States.
In Kansas.
Yeah. And that's actually how it spread as well. So what happened was it originated in Kansas, and there was a huge military training camp there, and it originated in 1918, which is the year that America sent troops to Europe. So what probably happened is a bunch of those guys, I think something by the end of the war, 25% of the American army had contracted influenza at some point. They didn't all die, but contracted. So those guys were sent over to France. And then in April of that year, the first recorded case is in Brest, France. And then by May, it's like everywhere on the Western Front.
Yeah, I mean, the military is one of those ways that, even since ancient times, that's how you spread a disease, ever since the Roman Empire.
Yeah, and I mean, especially World War One, there's all these guys in close proximity fighting in probably horrendous conditions, you know? It's not
likely
very
not very well fed.
Not sanitary.
Not very sanitary, low immune system.
And guys have been fighting for 4 years at this point. They're probably not in tip-top shape.
I mean, the Americans were in tip-top shape, I guess.
No, but like all the the Brits and the French and the Germans who caught this. Yeah, so they it was in the trenches. Interestingly enough, the people who caught it the most, even outside of the war, were young men, young healthy men. It's also the ones
with like the anti-COVID.
Yeah, it's also the group with the highest mortality rate. Which I'm not entirely sure why. I can't find a clear answer. I don't think it's really known. No. My first theory was maybe it's because it killed a lot of soldiers, but this is including like all the civilian deaths for the next 3 years.
Okay, so it's like proportional to like different demographics.
Yeah, like they included the women, the children. They did like all the
okay.
But I think about 25, like a quarter of the deaths were men, like young men.
Young men. Interesting. I wonder if it has something to do with like, I know certain diseases like they use your healthy immune system.
Yeah, I think
it
could be that. But there's not a really clear answer from what I could do in my research.
I don't know. We're students of history. Yeah. We're kind of getting out of our depth here.
It's still
that
really,
is very
really interesting. Yeah.
And I could see, speaking of how it affects World War One, I can imagine that is some very
that's why, because it kills
impacts.
a lot of soldiers, and we'll never really know the totals because.
And that's why women were led in the army, because they're like, we need someone who doesn't get killed by influenza.
But like I said, as far as we can tell, a quarter of all American soldiers, that's the cleanest number I could find, was got infected by the disease at least, right?
Wow.
It didn't have a super high mortality rate, but it was super like infective, like it was
infectious.
Really easy to contract.
Right.
So just by virtue of like so many people got sick that a lot of people did end up dying.
Yeah, so like proportionally speaking, it's not super high, but then
like your individual chance of dying isn't that high, but it infected so many people that the death toll was like really.
Yeah, because then it also clogs up all the systems, all the hospitals,
which was a lot less developed even than
anybody
today.
Else who also needs care or services then also don't have a chance. I can imagine it's just.
I don't know if they like that's true because I never considered the peripheral deaths. I have the death total of. Like,
because I'm thinking again with our recent life experiences, COVID. That's a lot of like the issues come in is all the systems being clogged, curfews.
And they had lockdown, they had the mask mandate. It's really strikingly, there's a lot of parallels you can draw.
Just 100 years later too.
So yeah, interestingly, I learned. So it lasted from 1918 to 1920. I mean, there was outbreaks after that, but that was the pandemic, if you will.
That was the initial.
Yeah, that's like the big wave. That's the one that killed the most people. So
right.
That killed between 25 to 50 million people. That's the estimate I found. There are higher estimates than that, but they're very unreliable. So I'd say 25 to 50 million is the scholarly consensus.
Right.
For reference, again, this is estimates here because it's World War I, not a clean war. Around 8 million soldiers died in World War I. And about 13 million civilian deaths can be attributed to the war, so starvation, bombings.
So it's like similar amounts.
So that's about 21 million people killed in World War I, which is like the low end of the influenza estimate.
Right.
But I also don't know, and I thought this was kind of important to mention, whether or not those estimates take into account like soldiers who died of influenza in the last year of the war.
That's what I was thinking, especially also civilians who died of the disease.
But I do know they cut off in 1918, so there's 2 years where they're definitely not being counted as war dead.
Yeah. But
But nonetheless,
it is also at the end of the war, so you can tell it's not one factor over the other. They're both extremely destructive.
But it is interesting to me. I didn't know it killed just about as many people, if not significantly more, than the First World War.
I mean, it's easy to forget. Like, I feel like all throughout history, diseases are...
But they're more deadly.
So yeah, they're like more than any war around those times. I have on my own channel, I have a video series I did on... it was Courland and Semigalia.
Mm-hmm.
And just like through the middle of like all these wars and politicking, all that, so many dead. There's just one line in somewhere which is just like, oh yeah, and there's a pandemic that killed 1/3 of the population.
Which is like an absurd...
1/3? Excuse me? Like, just casually.
That's
like
like
it
Black
just happens.
Death. Yeah, it's like Black Death totals.
But that's what I'm saying, is that it was also just kind of accepted, right? It's like, oh yeah, diseases, especially around that time,
And it
just
comes...
tear through populations.
And they come in tandem, right? When there's war, there's more likely that people are going to catch these. There's lots of troop movements to, transmit disease. Plus, everyone's like probably starving and not doing as well. It's unsanitary, like I was saying. So in one way that it did affect World War I.
And then also diseases cause wars, because then
Yeah.
it causes strains on resources, and it causes fear and anger and unrest. It all feeds into each other.
So I think one of the things we can say about its effect on World War I was that it probably hastened the end of the war. I read a lot of literature that suggested that.
Thank you.
Because it
Spanish
killed...
flu.
Because its arrival coincided with the final Allied offensive, and so many German and Allied soldiers were like sick and dying that it probably weakened their ability.
And the
to
Germans were already starving by the time.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, on top of that, it's just basically adding more. Like, it was like almost inevitable at this point they were going to lose.
Yeah, for sure. But I'm thinking, especially considering the starvation of the Germans, because that was such a big factor. And then you add on to that a flu that apparently predominantly kills young men
who are
regardless.
Yeah, in the trenches.
I can imagine, specifically given the circumstances, it was very...
Yeah, there's a lot of good evidence to suggest it really hastened the end of the war.
Silver lining.
Yeah, I guess. It also brings up a lot of interesting questions about like doing statistical research in this time, because there's so little good data about this because of all the war censorship. And then, of course, I think 3 or 4 of the countries after the war were involved in World War I had either revolutions or significant changes in government. So people's concerns weren't really with
whole administration, like
the Germans.
States collapsed, basically.
The Austro-Hungarians, the Russians. There's not really people who are super like the new government isn't really concerned with tallying the war dead and kind of bringing up the kind of bad memories, if you will, and the grief of the past. So there's a lot of contention in those countries. That's why the best numbers we have are from the Allied countries, like the winners, like the United States.
The ones where the bureaucratic systems and like state and the statistical like organizations
we're still functional and concerned with that. Yeah. So we don't really know how many Germans died. I mean, there's estimates, but they don't really know how many German soldiers.
Well, especially even if there was, I imagine, like statistical data on it, especially if you consider Russians, Germans, like I was saying, starvation. It's like, how do you tell the difference between a starvation death and an influenza death?
Well, that's also why the civilian dead World War I count is so contentious. It's because it's also things that are byproducts of the war, but like, how am I to say that all these kids, it's like, would they have gotten the disease because of the war without, like, it's difficult to tell.
Right.
Like, they count starvation because that's provably part of the war, but I mean, some of these people probably would have starved to death, I guess, otherwise. So it's always like there's always big variations in the estimates.
But I feel like,
but a lot of people sufficient to say died.
I feel like I'm derailing you a bit.
Oh, it's okay. I mean, that's the kind of the point of this, is to incite conversation about all this stuff. It's
right. But then we're just getting into questions on like how we study history at that point. But regardless, I think your point of hastening the end of the war.
I think that's the big
like if you use just common sense, quote unquote, which I'm not a huge fan of the phrase, but if you use like logically, it would. If there's more death, especially of young men
who are manning the front lines.
If they're dying quicker all of a sudden, I think the war will end quicker. That makes a lot of sense to me.
And there may even be I didn't read this. This is just me speculating, just to be clear. There might even be an argument to be made that it would have incentivized the Allies to end the war faster, since they're trying to deal with this horrible pandemic that's also sweeping their nation.
That too. Then again, the German either way,
The Germans were going
the
to
Central Powers weren't exactly on good ground.
No, it wasn't
get
like
much
neck
out of
and
the
neck by
negotiations.
1918.
So while that may have been true if it wasn't for the fact that the Central Powers were
we're on the way out.
collapsing. Oh yeah, Ottoman Empire too. They also collapsed.
That's true. And the influenza pandemic like swept. I mean, most of our data is European and North American because again, it's just the people who were taking all these statistics.
You're telling me the former Ottoman Empire didn't have?
But there was influenza there. It was like a worldwide pandemic.
Oh, and I'm sure, especially if we're talking about such infectious diseases.
Yeah, I mean, it's influenza. It's like the flu.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty much. Did you have anything to add about the World War
I
I?
feel like I added so much already. I feel like I don't want to take over that answer.
No, it's all right. No, that's the point. It's really to incite conversation about all these things.
But I
They're
think,
just like jumping off points. I have all the numbers and stuff, so we have stuff to talk
But
about.
I think that's interesting to think about, especially recent events.
Yeah.
Where we do have more developed, and as far as I'm aware, there weren't wars at the time.
not a war
Like
of the
world
magnitude
wars.
of World War One. Not like
Yeah.
killing 1% of the world population.
Exactly. Obviously, there was armed conflict at the time, sadly, but not at the same scale. And that is interesting to think about, like the differences.
These poor
in
guys.
circumstances.
That's all I can think about. You're in the trench. It's your 4th year there.
You're conscripted as well.
Yeah, it's your 4th year in
Some
the
of those
trench.
people didn't choose to be there.
And then you get it. There's this horrible pandemic. You go home for the next 2 years. You're like surrounded by this awful, horrible
Yeah,
pandemic.
you're already dealing with
Then the
shell
Great
shock,
Depression.
with like
What a
the
bad
post-traumatic
time.
stress.
The 20s were not it.
Yeah. Also, you couldn't drink alcohol.
In the States, no, that's true.
No, in the States you couldn't drink. I mean, we're Canadian. That wasn't much of an issue, but in the States you couldn't drink. So at least our Canadian ancestors who fought in World War I could drink.
Yeah, so that's I don't know. I don't have anything else to add about the World War One.
No, it's interesting to think about, but we have more questions.
Yeah. So the second one I got was what animals did the past people keep as pets? So for this one, the easiest answer is it's basically almost dogs and cats. So I thought I'd talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the domestication of dogs and cats. There were some other ones, but these are
Right.
by far the most common.
I mean, the dog is the famous example.
I mean,
right?
it's
They've been
almost.
with us
I
forever.
won't say universal because I'm certain there's an island nation somewhere with no
I mean,
dogs.
even in that's like one of the things where the few things that the Americas had as well as the quote unquote old world, right? As,
Oh, but that's-
as animals, let alone domesticated animals, was dogs.
It's because it happened so long ago, though. Like it predates the arrival of people in North America, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I didn't know this. So the very first animal to be domesticated by human beings was the dog. I knew that. But did you know that they were domesticated according to genetic evidence? So this is by looking at like when their species would have diverged from wolves.
Right.
Around at least a minimum of 20,000 years ago. But it's more like 40,000. They can just say for
Wow.
certain that at least 20,000, probably closer to 40,000 years ago.
Yeah, because I imagine the genetic, like, animals can still be tamed if they're wild.
Yeah, it's
given
like
certain
it's kind of hard,
circumstances.
but like they can for sure like when the minute.
Yeah, like there's no part of DNA where it says yes I like human or no I like human. You can't.
but there's
like,
a point where it's so overwhelming that they can make a clear cut like this is a different species.
Because I know for horses, I was watching a recent video. I'll put the channel in the description of anything of the video where it's like 10 historic discoveries of this year.
Yeah.
That are like super cool.
Mhm.
It's like someone who focuses on ancient history, and I'm talking about like new research that was done into horses and like their domestication and how they had a similar system of like finding when horse domestication like really happened. But what they did is that they studied, if I remember correctly, it was one variety of horse. Basically, there's like one ancestor to basically like
all the modern
domestic
horses, yeah, they have like a common.
and
yeah.
so they looked for like evidence of the DNA of that one horse kind of spreading around the world and like them becoming more populous. And apparently it happened like really, really fast over centuries, but
yeah, but fast relative to
relative to the history before then. And there was like new research that was also said it was like 20,000, but like actually actually I'm not gonna say a year. I don't actually remember the exact year, but I do find that kind of research interesting.
Yeah,
how like it's hard to tell the exact time when someone and a wolf or some
we'll
sort of
never
ancient
know,
canine.
but it's still cool that we can get to.
But like you
within
get
10
to a point where you're like, okay, by this time for sure,
people were doing this.
there was a lot of it, and there was enough that is very
Like
noticeable.
because it's leaving records. But I thought this genetic evidence. This is a new study they did. I think it's the Smithsonian in conjunction with them. I read it in the Smithsonian's like. It was an article for the Smithsonian magazine.
If anything, we'll put that in the description.
Yeah,
right?
but it's a newly developed technology. I'm pretty sure. Like this is new research, groundbreaking. Because before this, and that's the number I learned even in anthropology, was that the date we were certain of was 15,000 years ago, because that's when they start seeing archaeological evidence of domestications of wolves. So we see them in the
Right.
burials, you see them like dying around humans, and like you see like evidence that they were used for hunting as well, and you can
Right.
see the bone structure changing in the way they evolve compared to
It's like very like physical evidence.
yeah, like there's definitive physical evidence 15,000 years ago, as definitive as that can be, but according to the genetic evidence, minimum 20,000 and probably more like 40,000 years ago, which is a really
That's
long time.
Crazy.
Really is man's oldest
I mean,
friend.
it shows how like, dogs have really evolved to live alongside humans. But it makes sense if it was 40,000 years
It's
ago.
crazy.
They had a lot of time.
And it's really interesting if you look into how they've changed from wolves. They adopt more as they kind of diverge. They adopt more of the features of wolf pups, like young wolves, because humans
Right,
find
'cause
that
they're
more agreeable,
cute.
and young animals are more agreeable, right? It makes them easier to
Yes.
train.
Interesting.
Which we'll see when we look at the cats after that. Didn't
That's
happen to
right.
cats.
Yeah, all I know about cats in relation to humans and evolution is that they learn how to sound like babies.
Yeah, that is true. And they only meow at people. They don't meow to each other, really, which is really interesting.
So
But
we're being manipulated.
basically, and yeah, in the earliest archaeological evidence, we see that they were mostly used, to help hunter-gatherer societies hunt animals, and they
Makes
were used
sense.
to ward off predators.
Yeah. So it's
Kinda-
a very practical reason as well.
yeah, it's a bit like it's
Like I feel like I feel like we're definitely in the age of leisure pets.
yeah.
But throughout history, that wouldn't have been the case.
Throughout
Throughout most of
except
history,
for the
unless you were
wealthy.
very wealthy.
Yeah.
Which is why very wealthy people today like have like tigers or whatever. They have
Yeah.
their own zoos, is because they need something new, right? It's like, to have a pet that's for leisure,
Mhm.
but dogs is all practical.
But what I would say though is that even if
Well, not all practical.
They're
I say all
just-
practical.
they're
They would have
practical.
cared for their pets. I'm
I would
sure.
say like even because we see this, there's a lot of evidence of this in ancient Rome.
Mhm.
People had dogs and they were all working dogs. Basically, they all worked on farms, but people cared a lot about their working animals. Like,
Yeah.
there's always been this attachment. You'll see, like, especially in Rome, there's a lot of surviving dog graves with like poems written on them and people writing like beautiful messages to their deceased pets.
Mhm.
So even if they were working dogs, I still think people viewed them as part of, maybe not part of the family, but like in a similar way to the way we view
Yeah.
companions.
And even if we're thinking like through evolutionary terms of like the practical purpose of even loving your dog, it's like
it's good for the dog too.
it's good for the dog. It's good for you because then it's easier to make the dog happy in like this kind of social circumstances. It's good. Dogs are nice.
And that's why they're almost, again, I won't say ubiquitous because again, I'm certain it's really hard to say anything.
Oh, there's definitely
ubiquitous.
cultures out there that have lived without dogs.
But almost ubiquitous is because they were domesticated so long ago that they kind of followed human beings wherever they went. So that's how they arrived in the Americas, right?
Right.
As opposed to something like cats. And this is way before any other domestications. And they're also the only large predator that's ever been domesticated by humans.
That is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Because
'cause
especially if we're thinking of like domestication, a lot of it's like livestock.
Yeah.
The
And it
practical
comes-
purpose is very different.
Yeah, and they're all like they're all prey animals. They're all like you don't really see like domestication of like lions and tigers in the same way or anything
No.
like that.
Not even large vegetarians. Like
That's even pretty rare, yeah.
I guess there've been like elephant riders and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say that they've been domesticated.
Yeah, because then you
They've
get
been
into
tamed.
then you get into the argument of there's tame, which is like like you've taken a wild animal and you've made it like accustomed to humans, and there's domesticated where they're like bred to be more practical for human, like
Yeah,
they're
but
molded.
then where the line is between those.
Yeah,
can be
well, we'll get
fuzzy.
into that with the cats because they're apparently I learned this, they're not even considered domesticated. They're
No.
semi-domesticated
Mine's not. Mine's definitely not domesticated or semi.
because they're so. Well, we'll just talk about the cats actually. So,
Let's talk about the cats. Yes,
so
please.
I'm gonna finish with the dogs. So later, as the other animals get domesticated, so like this is when around we start to see sheep because I think they're the earliest livestock animal we have proof
Sheep?
of. Yeah,
Oh, that's
It's
interesting.
7,000 to 9,000 years ago.
I wouldn't have. I guess sheep makes sense because they're so multi-purpose.
Mm.
Because you get the wool.
They're also, I think, they have a naturally more friendly temperament than a lot of other animals.
I mean, they're very easy to herd.
Yeah.
Right.
They already have kind of an, and again, the dogs were used to herd livestock and to guard the
Well,
livestock.
there you
around
go.
this
No
time.
wonder we have shepherds. They've
Yeah.
been around for a very long time.
Yeah, like I said, 7,000 to 9,000 years is a long time, but still quite a big gap between the dog and the sheep.
Yeah.
So by then, the dogs would be more like the dogs we know today, even than like a wolf.
Interesting.
So then, moving on from that, then we see cats. They're semi-domesticated much later. So the modern day cat most likely originates from a species of wild African cat that still lives today, I think, or I guess it's like the other branch of the cat family.
Yeah.
It's descended from that. Lives in Egypt and the Near East is what they said. So like the Levant and
Checks
Jordan.
out. Egypt, yeah.
Yeah.
Egypt cats.
And they're nearly identical to house cats. Like if you look at these pictures of these cats even today, these African wild cats, they look like a house cat.
Nice.
Which is why, unlike dogs, they're not considered fully domesticated because there's not really been a huge amount of physical or behavioral changes with cats. And the first domestication or taming of cats coincides with the rise of agriculture in Egypt and the Near East. So
Interesting.
15 to 10,000 years ago, depending on, again,
Yeah,
agriculture.
it's a big difference from dogs.
Agriculture is kind of fuzzy, but 15,000 to 10,000 years ago around.
Like the Paleolithic to Neolithic.
Yeah. And, with agriculture comes the food surplus, which means there's granaries and lots of food in one place, which means lots of rats that are attracted to those foods. And then the cats slowly start moving into the villages because that's where the food is.
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of domesticate themselves. And then people, evidently happy that their food is not being eaten by rats anymore, tolerate the cats, basically, long enough for the cats to start kind of moving in.
Right.
And then they're primarily used, to hunt rodents and to deter, like, animals from eating their...
So like pesticide.
Yeah, almost. And then they take on some special connotations. Like I know in Egypt, for example, they're venerated religiously. In ancient Egypt, not now, to be clear. They're venerated as like a very...
Well, if I'm in Egypt, then I'm definitely venerating them. So there'll be one if I go.
They're a very important animal in Egyptian mythology. So yeah, that's
I
cats
guess-
and dogs.
That is very interesting. For cats in Egypt, like that relationship. If they protect your food supply, you would
Venerate them.
appreciate them. And with how needy they are, you would need to venerate them for them to stick around, wouldn't you?
It was a crime punishable by death in some cases if you killed cats. I'm pretty sure at certain points in ancient Egyptian history.
Interesting. Yeah, no, definitely cats are not domesticated. That's
Well,
the one I
there's
have
also
most personal experience with.
And part of the reason they consider it is that they can still, and that's why you see more feral cats than feral dogs, is because they're still like more accustomed to being in the wild,
Yeah.
And they can interbreed with those wild cats and have like viable offspring, like kids.
Right.
So
dogs
can't really breed with wolves in the way that they would have. They might be able to, but their kids would be sterile,
Right.
So they're not
like the liger.
Yeah, it's like the distinction. Whereas these cats can have like kids that can have other kids with the wild cats. So that's why they're not really. They're semi-domesticated.
They're the same species.
Yeah.
They're just semi-domesticated because they're still likely more comfortable indoors.
Yeah, and they're more used to living around people and everything.
That is interesting.
But they
So-
really look like house cats, that wild African
Yeah.
cats. I was shocked how little they diverge compared to like a wolf and like one of your dogs that you have at home.
Interesting. So yeah, dogs and cats. Did you look into any other pets, or were those?
Those were the two
ones?
I did because
I mean, those are the ones with the most history, I imagine.
Yeah, because the other ones are really like niche situations. You'll get like wealthy
Or
people,
livestock, I guess.
or livestock. They're not so much. Yeah, because these ones are the ones that you also see being treated as more like pets and less like
Yeah,
a
like-
source of income. Because
Right.
I'm sure there's people out there who care deeply for their cows, but not in like the same way that you'll see like dogs are almost ubiquitously viewed as like part of the household and like
Right.
given again in Rome given graves and so like epitaphs
Mhm.
and everything and,
And
cats being venerated.
Yeah.
You don't see that as much in the same way. I mean, you see other animals being venerated in cultures, but not in a way where they're like a pet. It's more like they're like a sacred animal.
Right. Interesting. I wonder if Egypt considered them sacred animals or pets, or both. I guess it would have been both if they were pets. But
They still lived around the villages and stuff, but yeah, I don't know. It's a good question.
it's one of those things where I wonder what
What the lion is.
life would be like, because we don't really see in our culture, we don't really see animals that way. So like it's interesting to relate to that kind of sacred relationship with a non-human
Yeah.
like living being, because certain cultures in India, like the sacred animal is the cow.
The cow,
and they don't
yeah,
eat
that's true.
cows.
In North America, the eagle is a big one for indigenous people.
That
Depends on
too.
the nation, but yeah.
And then I mean that's less of a history thing and just more
It's like
wondering
anthropology.
what
Yeah.
anthropology.
You're getting into cultural anthropology, which is also I did a little bit of that because technically we're before the written record here with the the dogs.
Yeah, that's very much
very much anthro.
anthropology.
But it's I did not know 40,000 years. That's a long time.
That's a long time. That's like, you're thinking Bronze Age is 4,000 years ago. It's like 36,000 years before the Bronze Age.
yeah. You're getting into like ancient history.
You're
Like,
really getting to anthropology territory there.
we're talking cave people there. Like it predates the invention of the bow and arrow and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's it's an ancient relationship. It's like man's best friend is half a joke, but they've been for a long time.
I mean, it's the first. Yeah.
The first domesticated animal, the one that's been alongside, the one that has been truly domesticated. It is the pet, right?
Yeah.
All over the world. Like I said, from the new world to the old.
And on every continent, bar
every
Africa,
continent.
or bar not Africa, Antarctica.
Yeah, exactly.
Even Antarctica, they probably got a dog. If
they got a dog there now, I'm sure.
I'm sure they got a dog there now.
It only took them enough time. Like
Even in space, they even sent one in space.
Yeah, the ascendancy of humans is the ascendancy of the dog.
But it's kind of a nice, I think it's really interesting, and I'd like to read more about how we I don't want to say co-evolved, but like developed together.
It's a very interesting field of research. I think it's one that will definitely uncover a lot about like history mixed with biology and like mixed with
especially with the newer technologies that are coming out today.
Yeah.
The ability to do it, like, because a lot of this is so far gone that there's so little physical evidence.
Yeah, people aren't writing in their journals about, oh, there's this wolf that keeps hanging around us.
I do wonder what that and it probably played out multiple times all over the world. Like, it probably wasn't one guy who was the first one to domesticate a wolf and all wolves come from him.
No, I'm sure
It probably is a situation that
But-
played out
yeah,
all over Eurasia.
likely, but I'm sure there's like one dog species that's like most.
Well, like I
related to
said, I
all
think
the
they
others.
originate from Eurasia. It's like
Yeah.
a species of wolf.
Again, I'm just thinking about back to the horse because specifically there is one ancestor to almost like
it's probably
every
the one
modern
that's
horse.
the most amenable to being
That's what I'm
around
saying.
people.
The one that's like
same thing with the cats, right? The wild
Yeah.
African cats. Because there's other species of cat or of big cat.
well,
and
other animals in which people have lived in like some sort of symbiosis that hasn't resulted in that kind of like. I say generational, but I feel like generational is too small of like a scale
Yeah,
of
you're talking like
millennia long
millennia, yeah.
relationship. It's crazy. Just wow. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't even know. I feel like I have that much to add. I think it's just one to
Yeah, I was
to
just shocked.
sit on.
I was like,
and
I was like, I
think
had-
about it. And if you have a pet, understand that relationship is part.
That's probably one of the
a
things you have in
ten-
common with ancient human beings.
Yeah, exactly. With your ancestors tens of thousands of years ago, back when we're probably almost all of us on the earth are related.
Yeah, when there was so few people.
Exactly. That's just crazy.
So on the same theme, someone asked me, what are some unconventional domestication? So I took that to mean, when asked for equivocation, not what you would imagine livestock or pets. So
I mean, hamsters those are more modern, and those are strange
yeah.
to me.
So like, something that, because not cows, chickens, pigs.
Lifestyle,
Like,
yeah, generally people I think understand.
So the one I chose to talk about was reindeer domestication, because I find this really
Ooh.
interesting.
The Sami.
It's the Sami people. Yes, this was practiced by some other cultures, but they're the ones that have the most documentation of the Sami people. So I'm going to talk about them. So the earliest direct archaeological evidence of reindeer domestication by the Sami people dates from about 1300 AD. So it's archaeological
1300 AD.
evidence.
Interesting.
It's believed that reindeer domestication began gradually from 800 to 900, because there's some textual sources about this from Norwegian.
That makes sense.
From 800 to 900 AD, and slowly became their main source of livelihood and how they their main.
So it'd be over the medieval era.
Is when they started to organize themselves socially around these reindeer herds, and when they started becoming their primary source of livelihood.
Interesting. Yeah, that's not too long ago.
No, it's actually really recent. Well, really
Yeah, that's
recent,
like-
historically speaking. compared
That's
to
like
the-
1,000 years ago.
yeah.
Which we were talking about 40,000 years ago for the dog. That's interesting.
They were there before that, but they were not. They hadn't domesticated the reindeer. It was more of a
didn't have that
traditional
relationship,
hunter-gatherer.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So reindeer are and were still to this day used for milk, meat, and transportation by the Sami people. So it's a practice that continues to this day, despite the fact that their traditional reindeer herding territory is divided into between 4 countries now, because their
Oh.
traditional indigenous territory, where their people are from, is the very north of Sweden, Norway, Finland, and Russia. So it's very much in the Arctic up there.
Yeah. Northern Scandinavia.
Northern Scandinavia, basically. And the way reindeer herding worked was they were traditional territories which would have been managed by a given family. So you
Mhm.
have your reindeer territory. Crucially, you did not own that land. It's a bit like indigenous North Americans' conception of land ownership.
Okay.
Just say it's not rigidly yours, but it's yours to manage, not yours to own.
Right.
In really brief terms. So basically, you'd herd your reindeer in that territory, but if there was a given season where it was really difficult, it wasn't like a social faux pas to graze your reindeer on someone else's land. Like, it was an acceptable practice.
Right. And out of necessity.
Yeah,
for
but you're like
the good of the community.
Yeah, but your family's like the steward of a given reindeer area.
Then again, it's not like you owned the land. You took care of it. Or
Yeah,
was it-
you're the ones. You're like managing it.
Yeah.
For the next generation of Sami people and for the next generation of reindeer herders.
So in that case, then you could ask someone else who manages their herd. You can go and
Can I use your grain, or well, not your grain, but
Yeah.
your lichen, I guess, is what they eat.
lichen. That's true. They do eat lichen.
And yeah, so they were divided. There's a lot of them today. I think there's, depending on the country, because they still exist as like a tree, like how do I explain this? Sami people who have traditionally herded reindeer, their families are still afforded the territory in some country, but it's kind of a complicated issue I'm not super well versed in. So I'll leave it at that.
Not quite the reservation system of Canada.
No, but I know they're afforded some rights, but there's still a lot of discrimination. That's where I'll leave it. But the reindeer herding is still practiced today.
At least it's still a
Which is,
thing. I'd
yeah.
love to try some reindeer cheese.
Yeah, I wonder what the milk tastes like too. That's true because
I'm thinking like, I don't know. I haven't had any milk outside of cow's milk. I've had cheese though, so I've had like sheep's cheese,
like goat cheese. I wonder what
which I know they're
reindeer
like more
cheese-
acidic. I wonder if that's the same thing for reindeer. Or
I
if
don't
that's
know.
different.
I know like the Mongolians used to make, this is getting a little off topic, but they used to make they used to drink horse milk, and I wonder if it resembles that.
Yeah,
at
horse
all.
milk is something that I know has been eaten in some places, like over the steppe. That's true.
Yeah,
Mongolia is
because
one of those
you know
places,
there's
but all over.
It's the most. I mean, if you have all these horses anyways for transportation, right?
Might as well. But that I am curious how that would. I'm not like so committed that I need to find out. I'm not gonna book my take my plane ticket to Finland just so I can try some reindeer
Yeah,
cheese.
I feel like it's probably pretty hard to procure outside of those countries, right?
I mean, it's especially here. I don't know how much.
I
of
don't know
that
how
they
much
do
there's a demand
shipping.
for reindeer because this is the only. Again, I think today they might. Again, I hesitate to say this because I'm not certain, but it's the only group today I think that still practices reindeer herding. And before there were other groups in the Ural Mountains and in Siberia,
Okay,
but this is the most well documented and the most numerous.
definitely the well documented. I'm sure the ones in Siberia are just like, if they are allowed to exist,
They're
not
just still
allowed to
doing it.
Put up a fuss like.
So yeah, a little more about the reindeer herding. I learned this too. There was each family basically had a unique earmark, so they would cut a little piece of the ear off the reindeer
Oh, okay,
in a certain shape to denote their
Creative.
like the ones they manage, the reindeer
Mhm.
that are theirs. And it was considered. I found this little tidbit of knowledge interesting. It was considered like an essential skill for a reindeer herder to be able to identify all the traditional earmarks and which family they correspond to. So to be a good reindeer herder, you got to be able to know all of them. And there's a lot of different families in the. Like I said, I think there's over 100 different family
Interesting.
managed territories in the north traditionally.
So you got.
Yeah.
So you got to know.
You got to know the symbols, and you got to know whose reindeers are whose.
I mean, yeah. I guess it makes sense that you'd have to know that,
Mhm.
especially if you're talking about managing. Like, you're allowed to go into someone else's, but you can't be like, "Oops, sorry, I didn't know," because then
No,
the whole
and-
system kind of falls apart.
Mm-hmm. They're really fascinating, and just doing this research made me want to read so much about it because it's a very fascinating way of life that is quite unique.
So hey, maybe it'll be a future.
Maybe a
episode
future
about the
episode,
Sami.
yeah, yeah. So
That's very interesting,
That's,
yeah.
do you know any other unconventional domestications of animals? There's the reindeer were the one that's
Unconventional, I feel like, is very subjective term, but I think,
Let's say like
I don't know. I'll say
that people
one
might
that
be less aware of.
I think I don't know if people are less aware of it, but llamas in South America. I don't think necessarily that their domestication is interesting as much as like the context, because they're the, like, other than dogs, they're the only domesticated animal
In the Americas.
In the Americas. Didn't have horses, didn't have cows,
Chicken, pigs, nothing.
sheep, pigs, anything like that. You know, it was really llamas were the like closest to domesticated.
Were
They were
they,
domesticated animals, yeah.
Were they used as pack animals?
Yes.
Okay, but it makes sense
and-
though in the Andes, right? It's so mountainous.
Exactly. No, and it's hard enough to grow like food there
Mm-hmm.
that having that, especially if you're like trying to live a more sedentary lifestyle.
And it's an animal
Llama-
that's adapted to the climate and to the
Exactly.
environment already, right?
And it's I mean, I already find cultures in the Americas interesting, especially pre-contact,
Mm-hmm.
just because of their differences to our more the ones we're more aware of, the ones
Mhm.
we're taught more about. And I think that's one that I don't know enough about, that I'd like to learn more about.
One
but
day we'll do an episode on the Incan Empire.
I mean, the Incan Empire. Don't get me started. I read a lot into them, but specifically on like,
Llamas.
their relationship to animals. Llamas especially is one that I find interesting just because of them being the only domesticated animals outside of dogs. But that is an interesting case, I think, because it's like a very, very isolated case. But I know there's other isolated cases of other domesticated animals around that I just can't think of, because unfortunately I've done a lot of research on human relationship to the environment, but to animals is one that is a bit
And
of
you
a
know
blind
what?
spot for
Because
me.
at a certain point, you also get into the fuzzy area of, is it a domesticated animal? Is it like they're coexisting? Because there's a lot of that in the Americas of
Oh, there's
coexisting and
definitely a lot of-
managing.
in the
managing wild
Americas,
populations.
there's so much like symbiotic relationships, coexistence,
But it's not necessarily
but
traditional
domestication. Llama
Yeah.
is like the one, and that is what I find interesting. Because when I say domestication, I'm not saying like, other than that, they didn't know what to do with animals at all. They just killed them. Like, no,
No, it's
that's
just
not what
that
happened at all.
it's just the only ones that
The
have been-
relationship was just not that of, like symbiosis and living alongside each other in like the same spaces all the time. It was, oh, this animal's helpful, let's let it come here or do whatever. These relationships are very complicated, and that's one that I wish I'd learned more about, was like human animal symbiosis outside of domestication.
Yeah, it's also not something that's just taught very much, and it's a little under researched. And I find it really interesting, especially in the Amazon. There's a lot of that.
The Amazon, but even like when we think about
the American,
even like the British Isles, like the wolf population was like exterminated, if I remember correctly, and like the consequences of that are one that I
there were beaver as well in the
beaver as well, which I think there are now. I think they were like reintroduced.
But the reason that, why they ate them all? This is like a sidetrack, but do you know why they all got eaten?
I feel like you told me, but I forgot.
Because you know how, is it Fridays you're not supposed to eat meat?
Yeah, Lent.
But they're
fish.
But the Catholic Church says if it swims in the water, it's a fish. So they got all hunted to extinction.
So it's a fish. It's the Catholics. They killed all the beaver.
Yeah, I didn't know that. But apparently, yeah, because you eat them on Lent. So they were very popular for a while.
Wow.
Apparently, beaver is very good.
And that's why they only live in Russia.
Some of my friends who are also some of my friends who are indigenous told me that beaver is very, very good, but I've never had it. I know a lot of people trap beaver, but I've never tried it.
I'd be curious. I'd be willing to try it.
Yeah.
I've had my fair share of beaver tails, but I've never tried actual beaver.
Actual beaver, yeah. All right. So the next question I got from one of our friends is what inventions / contributions to science were created in the Arab world? Pretty broad.
In the Arab world, that's very. I can think of a few.
Yeah, I can think of a few. So I just picked one because I thought you would know one as well. So I just did the Arabic numerals, right? The ancestor of our of our number system.
I mean, those come from India, though, right?
Yeah, but in the form that they're used today.
Yeah, the form they're used are very different. But those like the origination. And
yeah,
I'm sure the Arab world changed it because in a way that made it very suitable to, especially they're like an expanding empire, right?
Yeah, actually, the version we use today, or the ancestor of the version we use today, because it's been tweaked a little bit, originated in 10th century Islamic Africa, actually.
In Africa, oh, interesting.
In North Africa, and as you might know, there's a lot of contact between North Africa and Sicily and with other parts of Italy.
Yes.
So they were actually popularized in northern Italy by Fibonacci of Fibonacci sequence fame.
The Fibonacci sequence?
Yeah, that guy. He wrote a big...
The golden ratio?
Yeah, he wrote a big treatise on math, and he included the Arabic numerals, and then they became very popular, but only in northern Italy, until around the 15th century when the printing press was invented, and then they started to spread out to the rest of Europe.
Yeah, that would make it spread quickly.
Mm.
Interesting. So, yeah, and I mean, Arab numerals is a big one. That's our conception of numbers, our conception of science, our conception of astrophysics, of gravity. All of that is...
I do know algebra was also, again, maybe not invented, as it's kind of hard to denote who invented it, but given that name and kind of put to paper was in the Islamic world as well.
Right. That makes sense. I mean, a lot of these ideas kind of pop up in different places. I know there's a few mathematical concepts that were simultaneously developed in Europe and in India. Calculus is a famous example. I know there's
one guy in England, one guy in Italy. It was Newton and another guy in
Italy.
And
then it turns out there's also...
a guy in India, right?
There's a guy in India, yeah, but there's also an ancient Greek who might have like gotten started on calculus, like way early on. I don't remember the context. So I'm not.
Who knows? Maybe they invented it. We just lost the time. Like the.
I mean, it probably was. Some people were like, I don't know what to do with calculus. We're in ancient Greece.
Yeah,
like
the
what
one
are we
copy
use
of the
book,
burned to the ground or something, or it was like destroyed or just rotted away.
Yeah, that's again. It might not be calculus, but I remember there was. I think it was like a Catholic monk had written over like a manuscript,
and you can see that now with imaging technology.
Yes, and it was some sort of mathematical concept that was invented later on, or discovered, I guess. I don't know how mathematical concepts are considered in that sense.
I don't know if
are they discovered or are they invented.
I think that's probably a debate to be had, but
that would be. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about inventions of the Arab world.
I know they didn't invent the astrolabe, but they perfected it. They got it down to a really good science, and they were very big on astronomy. Something like half the stars have Arabic names, if I remember right.
No, they were big on astronomy. Just math and science in general, especially math, early on, and that's how it relates to astronomy, right? Is that a lot of astronomy is math when it comes to like predicting these things.
I'm pretty sure they were. I can't remember the guy's name, but he proposed a theory of the moon orbiting around the Earth. Like the Earth orbits around the sun.
I'm not sure who. I hadn't heard that before, but so that's one to look into. If you want to look it up real quick, while I can talk about what I think.
Sure.
I don't know if I should talk about what I think of Arab numerals or contributions of the Arab world to science, inventions,
There's a lot. I
engineering.
mean, there's the Baghdad House of Wisdom. If you want to talk about like codifying and
there's a
bringing all the
lot.
knowledge
I mean,
together.
it's translating ancient works. A lot of ancient works were kind of repopularized. There's this big like debate of like, oh, in Europe, was it the Arab world that reintroduced the pagan, ancient Greek, ancient Roman sources to Europe, or did they already have those? But either way, definitely the Arab world, I think, made them spread because they consumed a lot of that, especially once you get to like the Sultan of Rum and like the Turkic peoples who really go further into Anatolia, get into the Mediterranean world. It's hard to conceive of the contributions of such a big culture to something so broad as science, because the Arab world's been there for a long time.
Yeah, and apparently here in the I was right in this is the 10th century. Was proposed that the Earth rotates rotates on its own axis as well as rotating around the sun, because they made the connection that in order for what they're seeing in action on Earth with the tides and everything to make sense, it also has to be rotating.
Right.
So that was another contribution. So I think we have to move on from this, unfortunately, if we want to get through all of them. So the next one is like a huge swing, completely different direction. Someone asked me what caused the Satanic Panic in the 1980s in the States and Canada.
Oh boy.
Which weirdly enough is kind of related to what we studied in our U.S. history class.
It's very
particularly
related.
What you did with
particularly
Reagan.
what I did.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the Satanic Panic in general, if I understand, was part of a broader movement of moral panic that swept the United States, to a lesser degree Canada, following the civil rights and countercultural movements of the 1960s and early 1970s.
Oh yeah.
Roughly,
yeah.
And it corresponds with, I think, an increase in the political relevance of evangelical Christians.
Yeah, I mean, even talking about, I don't know how deep you go into the importance of religion in like American politics, but there's a lot of, especially evangelicalism specifically, has a lot to do with Reagan and the Republicans and the votes of religiously minded people in an era where a lot of people were becoming disillusioned with politics in general, like after Nixon, after Carter.
Yeah.
Like people most committed to action was evangelicals. But even beyond that, it became such a big part of American identity, religion, because it was like the opposite of Soviet atheism.
Yeah.
Which is why, was it in the 50s? I think I recently looked into this, in the Pledge of Allegiance, which said every morning in American schools, which, let me tell you, as a Canadian kid going to school and seeing that for the first time, wild stuff.
Yeah.
Like pledging allegiance to the nation every morning. But in the 50s, it was like God was added into it. Specifically as like because I think there's a few, there was two reasons, but one of them was anti-atheism, like fighting against communism, Red Scare stuff. So
godless commies kind of propaganda. Yeah.
So religion not only became a part of, someone's personal identity, but the national identity, the civic identity. Especially, I guess it depends on where you lived in the U.S. Probably around that time. The U.S. is a very big country with a lot
and I mean the Satanic Panic was obviously stronger and heavily the South and the Bible Belt and places where,
and religion's always been important in the U.S. But it's been maintained by the Red Scare, the Cold War, and again the increased importance of them politically as a voting bloc.
But there's, I think if I remember, they did a study, and there's some of the most active. Like if you look at the percentage of them who like don't abstain, who actually show up to the polls compared to the general population, like evangelicals are some of the most politically active people in the United States.
They're very motivated. Yes. Before we get into this story, so please go ahead. Sorry.
So this background of generalized moral panic at like America's perceived degeneracy after the 60s and 70s of like
a tale as old as time.
Free love and hippies and the Beatles and the acid and I don't know, the Grateful Dead or something.
Yeah, Grateful Dead. That's one of them for sure. I'm sure they were named.
There was a pretty strong reaction to this in American culture. So by the time we get to the 80s, there's kind of like a ferment of this, of like fear of the occult and like things that might be perceived as satanic.
Satanists.
We're also seeing the rise of heavy metal around this time and things that could use that imagery, right?
The
And
kids, their brains are getting infected by these electric guitars,
The
and
electric
this rock
twangers, like the-
music.
And also, the Satanic Church, the protest organization, not like an actual cult, was founded in the 70s. You know, it just puts fuel on the fire, you know?
Yeah, which I think was the point, but
Yeah, no, it was, but I don't think they predicted what it would cause.
no, it did.
So-
They did not.
Provides a good opportunity for sensationalist, and I might add, debunked accounts of satanic cults, like very thoroughly debunked.
Mm-hmm.
Before I flame this poor woman, this person was, I don't know why they said all this stuff. I will not speculate why they said all this stuff.
I'm sure many people have many opinions.
But I got a very good example, and some people purport that this is the book that kicked it all off. Whether
Yeah.
that's true is debatable, but it was very influential anyways. It's called Michelle Remembers. You ever hear this book?
I think I've heard of the story you're gonna tell, and I know it's related to a book. I just am not familiar with the title.
So Michelle Remembers is published in
It's about a
1980.
daycare, yes.
I think so. It's published in 1980, and it's co-authored by Michelle Smith and her psychologist, right? This
Yes.
book is incredibly popular, like sweeps the nation. And the book chronicles Michelle and her psychologist attempts to uncover her like buried memories, right?
Right.
Like through hypnosis and all that kind of stuff, like her like, kind of repressed trauma about her alleged abuse at the hands of a satanic cult when she was a child.
Yeah.
And she claims this cult predates Christianity itself and is a cabal that's active all over the world. Like they're like a conspiracy.
Something Jewish people.
There's probably some latent anti-Semitism.
Well,
in this.
around that time is definitely the blood. What was the conspiracy where it's like the Jewish people like bleed out babies to
don't
put in
know.
their like unleavened bread?
don't know.
It's a conspiracy that was it was big in the medieval era. It was a blood libel.
Yes, blood libel. So she claims, yes, and then she claims to have seen Satan himself and been victim of several rituals, including one that supposedly lasted 81 days when she was a child. And she was abused. I'm not going to get into it because it's really graphic depictions, but basically she was horribly abused, allegedly, in this satanic cult. Right?
Yes.
So this is debunked really thoroughly, mostly by the fact that that alleged 81-day long ritual took place when she was a kid in school, and her teachers and friends of the time have attested to her being at school with no weird absences or like she seemed perfectly fine.
Yeah.
And she was unable to name any of her alleged abusers, even though allegedly there was 1,000 of them in the ceremony. And
1,000.
at the largest, there was 1,000. They were doing stuff like cutting off their fingers for the black mass, you know.
Wow.
So they would have been identifiable. She couldn't name a single one of them. And she was allegedly saved from this by an intervention from the Virgin Mary and Jesus themselves.
Right.
I'm not going to get into that, but
Someone's
This-
tugging on a few heartstrings here.
this didn't happen. This cannot be corroborated by anyone other than her psychologist who claims that
But
this-
that's the point.
yeah.
It's the big conspiracy.
So naturally, these sensationalist stories were platformed by influential media figures such as Oprah Winfrey,
Oprah Winfrey.
who had her on the show and never once questioned the validity of her story, despite her having her on the show like 9 years after the book is published and after there's many articles debunking
No,
her
Oprah
book.
Winfrey was very. I'm just gonna a little tangent. Oprah Winfrey has such like around this time really went deep in like satanic panic stuff.
Oh, and moms everywhere, man. We're watching this and freaking out, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's not part of our generation necessarily. People who were part of like the satanic panic, but people who were like slightly older than us.
Yeah, it's like
were likely
Gen
had
X.
parents
Yeah.
like Gen X or well even those like boomers close like that were like parents of millennials.
Yeah, millennials.
And
yeah.
millennials would be impacted by the parents being like, "Be careful out there. There's satanic cults."
Well, we'll get to that.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so she has Michelle Smith and another famous author on the show, and she just kind of uncritically lets them spew all their sensational stuff about.
And I say about the daycare because there's also a similar story around that time, of like a daycare that was like abusing children.
Was that in Canada? Because there's a similar story in Saskatchewan where they claim that there was a satanic cult like eating babies in a daycare
It
in
might.
the 80s.
It honestly, it might have been, but I think there was probably more than one. I wouldn't be surprised if there was more
Yeah.
than
Well,
one.
it probably like there was one and
But
then
it was
there was
a-
30. You know, it's
yeah,
like
there was a big story in the States. It might have been the one in Saskatchewan that you're talking about, but that might be
'Cause another
just-
way-
that might be
it was
the
here too.
Canadian off-brand Much TV version of
yeah,
that.
the CBC version of
Exactly, but that was a big thing that like they had to shut down eventually because a bunch of people were like protesting and calling them and like being like, "What are you doing
Why
to
are
the
you eating
babies?"
babies?
But
This had
it's
such a profound effect on the popular
wild.
consciousness of the North America, well, like America and Canada, that the police and the FBI both started giving out like informational seminars on how to identify and deal with like alleged satanic cults.
That's Crazy.
And the police were giving this way too much credence. They were like actively investigating the
Well, the
existence
police
of
famously known for putting their attention towards the right things.
the things that are totally real
wink,
threats.
wink, dare, wink, wink went very well.
And this happened in Canada as well, by the way. Even these distribution of leaflets to local police departments. So
You know what? I know some people in the police. I might ask if they got some old flyers.
yeah, I wonder. Yeah, from the 80s or the early 90s. If you still,
I'll see if they got those in their
I
records
can't believe
somewhere.
the FBI was training their agents. It's like, what is this, the
I mean,
X Files?
the FBI was looking into like psychics.
Oh,
and
that's
stuff.
true. We're still in the.
Or
peak
sorry,
of
that was the CIA, but still, the three-letter agencies.
They're probably dosing.
They're made
people
up of people, and people are subject to the pressures of their time. You know.
So I think in big, I would say it was that there was like an undercurrent of moral panic already and a rising religiosity.
Religiosity.
Yeah, in America around this time, that was then capitalized on by authors and people trying to sell a story.
The beginning of the attention economy.
Yeah, and then
books, TV,
this is when
radio.
reality TV was big, and all this was being popularized by important people in the media, and then of course this reaches the government, and then they're forced to act on it, even though it's
They
complete
acted
nonsense.
on it quicker than they did for AIDS.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, so that's all I got to say about the Satanic Panic. I don't know if you have anything to add.
I mean, the Satanic Panic is such a like. It's weird because at that point it's like you're trying to like find the origins of a vibe.
Yeah,
It's like it's a wider movement of some connected, disconnected, but part of this trend of like a mix of this religiosity. Well, Cold War era everything. Actually,
Yeah,
but
everything, yeah,
Cold
all
War
of it.
era religiosity, Cold War era paranoia, disillusionment,
the reaction to the
neoconservatism on the rise, like religious. It's not just religious, but like the cultural reaction, like the fact that adults were now like becoming bigger population than children, past like baby boomers. It's just like so much melding together. Like I'm sure that would be a very interesting topic to talk to our parents about. Is like their
I wonder what they remember that, because my parents would have
the
been
Satanic
kids
Panic.
during that time. Yeah,
Exactly. And I know like my parents had not super religious upbringings, but they definitely had upbringings more connected to religion than I do. And they did that. It was around the Satanic Panic.
it also didn't help that a lot of experts in quotations tried to lend credence to all these theories. Like, there's a lot of psychologists who were like,
especially, well, that's the thing, is that people credentials, man.
yeah,
It's such a double-edged sword. It's like credentials are a good way to know who has the right information, who has the wrong, who's studied.
but then
this
you
for
get
a long time.
psychologists like this who
But then someone with credentials who then latches onto this stuff then just gives credence by being the one person who says it. It's like there's so much to dive into, because there's like the historical aspect of the Satanic Panic, of these different events, of trying to match it to like today, of different moral panics that
Yeah.
happen. Moral panics have been happening forever. Like
yeah,
you're saying,
it's
like,
just another one in a long
degeneracy.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to the Roman Empire. They've
Yeah.
been complaining about degeneracy forever.
People have been complaining about the
They
degradation
thought
of the youth
Greeks
and culture.
were inherently degenerate. That's like, that was the thing, was that Greek culture was degenerate, and that like anyone who gave in to Greek culture that were conquered by the powerful agriculturally minded Romans, as opposed to the Greeks who live in the mountains and just think all day. Like,
all the time writing and reciting philosophy and poetry.
yeah, and like doing, being gay and doing drugs or
Yeah.
whatever. Well, not being gay, but
I mean, that's basically the hippies of the 60s, if you think
exactly.
about it.
But that's what I'm saying. Like these kind of moral panics, they like D&D is so popular nowadays. D&D was such like an interesting part of the Satanic Panic.
Harry
And
Potter, too.
Harry Potter, anything that had to do with ghouls and goblins,
Metal, or
and
anything that has
metal, demons.
I mean,
Doom, the game where you slay demons, was apparently too demonic.
Yeah.
Make that one make sense, I guess. But it's, I'm not like, I hate to say that like any movement is like, there's something wrong with it and that it's entirely wrong, because I'm sure there was some abuse going on, and a lot of it was like awareness of abuse. Because I know around the time is when,
Well, that's where are your kids? Where are your kids? Those ads that would
Yeah.
come on TV. Like, do you know where your kids? It's 9
like
o'clock.
I
Do
know
you
it
where
was
your kids
like
are?
in,
Or like
in the 70s there was like a lot of like,
Serial killer.
kids could just go anywhere, just like, send your kids out. And then that's around the time when they were like, okay, maybe be more careful about where your kids go, like keep track of them
There's
bit
probably
more.
a lot of
There's
factors
a
that
lot
you
of
could.
kidnapping. Like there's a lot of this rightful worrying about your children who you care about very deeply and don't want to see anything bad happen to them, alongside this greater acceptance of therapy and of these ideas of like trauma
And like
and all
repressed
these
memories.
repressed memories. It's like a lot of this very legitimate stuff, and I think very good developments in North American culture that come alongside grifters and people who want attention and money and want to become famous and want to like create a cultural moment. And Oprah,
And Oprah, yes, just Oprah.
which I have many issues with Oprah.
I think that Behind the Bastards podcast did like six episodes on her or something.
They
which,
did,
which is
which
one of
goes
the
to
longest
which
they've
goes
ever
to show
done.
how much there is to say, But I mean, I have my own issues with Oprah.
She was the biggest name I could find, but this was like a very popular talk. Like
But to
Jerry
be fair, about
Springer,
Oprah, all I know about Oprah was like there was like a few scandals about like her book club and the Satanic Panic stuff. Honestly, I'm not very familiar with Oprah out of that.
I think she's
outside of that, but I know she's big on, she also is very responsible for Dr. Phil and for Dr. Oz and stuff like that. But she's very much linked to the Satanic Panic. This is part of her rise, is her giving credence and uncritically.
Well, that's the thing. She never
platforming these
like. I
people.
watched part of the interview for this episode. Like when I was doing research, I was curious. So I watched part of it. She like just accepts everything this woman says with no question at all.
Yeah, and like I was saying earlier, there's probably some sort of anti-Semitism in there.
There's always anti-Semitism.
There's always anti-Semitism in there. Again, blood libel. Again, about children, about taking care of your children. A lot of these religious.
But this is like related to the QAnon
panics.
stuff. If you think about it,
It's all about children.
it's always about child abuse because it's so hard to come out against that without seeming like a terrible person because they'll just go, you're for child abuse. Like if you don't believe in the Satanic Panic, you must like be okay with it.
Yeah, you must be okay with child murder and child endangerment.
Because it's such where everyone's like,
But it's not just that, it's so hard to go against it. I don't think it's like a malicious choice necessarily. I think it's just one of those things that
like
people
instinctually
care about.
Yeah, kids. People are like worried about
like
kids.
when you pay attention to like, oh, this cult is killing children or abusing children. You don't go,
you go, what the fuck?
quacks. You go, what the fuck? And then, is this true or is this wrong?
Yeah.
You have to have an opinion on it. You can't just ignore
Because
it.
it's
Because in a way, you can even ignore like murder. Like it sucks to say, but if people will do that.
but that's
and
still
people do
more
that every day.
normalized in our society because like, that's like harming children is just and
Harming-
rightfully so viewed as what like basically the most terrible thing you can do, right?
There's like no justification for
Yeah.
it because it's children. There's nothing they could have conceived.
So I do understand why it was such an easy panic to
Yeah,
fall into,
and-
especially if you're a parent.
And I understand that like there's aspects of it that like come from positive aspects as well, but you gotta be careful with your information. Like you know.
But it's crazy how much the society, and I know it's like the way that even the police and the authorities like fell into this of like legitimizing it. Even I don't know if they even really believed it, or if it was just a way to like calm the
A lot
public.
of it has to be like addressing it because if the police are seen to ignore the pedophile satanic ring,
I know,
then
but
all
at
of
the
a
same
sudden
time, if
seem
they
like
know
they're
it's
part of it.
untrue, you're lending a bunch of undue legitimacy to something that's not true, right? But at the same time, it's probably some of them probably first of all believed it was true in the police force.
And I think especially if you're in the mindset of public safety,
Yeah,
it's
like,
probably a lot easier
to just investigate.
if you say, but even if you don't believe it, say it's a lot easier in terms of public safety if that's your only job. You're not here for, the truth. You're the police.
Yeah.
You want people to be safe. Is it easier to try to desperately say to people, it's not real, it's not real, we swear it's not real, or maybe it's real.
We'll look into it.
We'll look into it. For now, to keep your children safe, do this, 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 and that.
That's true.
You're more likely.
It's illogical, yeah.
It's like, if your job is to do that, I don't think there's anything inherently malicious about playing along with it for the sake of making people's lives safer, easier, better, whatever. So, again, there's grifters. There's always people who might be playing
But I
into
think
it
it does, even
for
if
political
that's-
points. But there are reasons to play along with the panic. If your goal isn't necessarily to make sure everyone's on the right page and that the truth is known by everyone, because that's not necessarily, first of all, an achievable goal.
Yeah.
And secondly, a necessarily good goal, depending on the situation. So
That's true. I think it still
there's
demonstrates
also that part of it, I think.
how widespread and how like big this belief in this cabal of satanic cults was, that the police and the FBI had to take it seriously in order to reduce the dangers
Yeah.
to the public safety.
I mean, moral panics have been here and they will be here. I'm sure our moral panic
Maybe
will have
robots.
something to do with robots.
I always say that
the
it's going to be
degenerate
robots.
robots.
That'll be the great debate of our time.
It will be. Just so you know, robots, we support our future robot overlords.
Yes.
All right.
I love the Terminator.
Yes, T2, love them.
All right, so I think we have time.
T1000, I guess, in T2.
Do we have time for one more? I don't know what time we're.
Yeah, we do have time. I guess we'll just make it short, but yeah, we have time.
Yeah, okay. Because I have I really only have one more. So
okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll do it quickly. No worries.
All right, it's not a super long one, anyways. So one of our friends as well asked, why do cats and other animals look so weird in medieval paintings? Why do they always look a little messed up? As you've probably seen from the memes online.
Oh yeah.
The cats always look a little funky or anthropomorphic.
I love the horse that's like face.
Yeah, they're just like they look
the
wrong.
Yeah.
I couldn't find a clear answer for this one. I was surprised for something that's such a big like trend. I did find a few different explanations. We can kind of debate which ones you think are
also
legitimate.
like different reasons depending on which image you're talking about.
So I do know that there are a variety of reasons. One general explanation I've seen is that medieval artists aren't really concerned with realism at all in their depictions of anything. They're more they're more interested in iconography and depicting a message or conveying a theme.
It's more important that you understand what you're seeing than that it looks realistic.
Yeah, so there's a point to be made, and also most early medieval art where you see most of the weird cats is deeply spiritual and divine. Like they're not really concerned with earthly affairs. So they're not really concerned with depicting things as they look to us, but as they like would represent.
Yeah.
So there's maybe, I can't exactly tell you what the cats are supposed to represent, but I know, for example,
it could be that they're just representing cats, and as long as the like audience understands that it's a cat, then it doesn't really matter if it's realistic.
Yeah, and I know, like for example, when they depict the Trinity sometimes as three people. Maybe not the Trinity, but they depict holy people together. They'll have their faces all look kind of similar, and people might say, well, it's a lack of artistic ability, but really it's supposed to represent like the unity of
the unity of the three.
Yeah.
Okay.
And things like that. So that's one explanation I saw. Another one was that cats were kind of widely derided, like not liked in medieval European society. This is rarely like circumstantial evidence, but I was deeply amused by, there was this testimony from a monk that was like, because what happened was a cat walked with like ink on its paws all over his manuscript, and he went out into the village square and started
That's
like
just the ancient equivalent of my cat walking on my keyboard.
Yeah, and he started decrying how they're agents of Satan and how we shouldn't let them into our homes. So maybe that was more commonplace, and it was
I'm sure it was a malicious act against catdom.
And you see on some manuscripts there's little paw imprints on them even today. It's pretty cute.
That's adorable, and I love it.
But I think the real explanation is probably closer to realism is a lot of little concern compared to conveying ideas and concepts in medieval art.
There is one thing I want to introduce, which I don't know how relevant it is, but seeing as it seems like there's no
I couldn't find a definitive answer.
I will throw my answer into the ring, which I think you're very right, because you were correct about like symbology and all that. But I also a very interesting development in the history of art in Europe specifically is that oil paint wasn't like used really until I think 1400s.
Okay, so the tail end of the medieval period.
Yeah, before that a lot of it was water paint, like dyed water that was used. And the reason why oil painting is so good to use is that it dries slowly. When the water paints would dry very quickly, so you have to make what you want easily. It couldn't be very like detailed, in depth.
Oh, I see, because you don't have as much time to form it.
Exactly.
It like hardens and okay.
So a lot of that might be up, especially if you think about monks who don't necessarily have the resources for like making mosaics or like very detailed frescoes or whatever, things like that. I think you're right, and I'm wondering if it's more like parallel reasons, or if the symbology thing comes out of a necessity of needing to make things more quickly, so you use like simplified symbols
to get the point across.
To make the point across.
Could be true as well.
I don't know what kind of relationship that is. I don't really want to speculate on that because I don't know enough, but I do.
We're not art historians, but it is really.
And even my theory is very half baked, and one it just came up like 2 minutes ago.
But still, it seems like at least on the surface, like it would make sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's something I'd like want to look into more, but how that kind of affects the way art is made, it needing to be quicker, and the skill not necessarily being in the depth
and how accurate of a depiction,
and the tension and the precision. Instead, it's the ability to make a comprehensible piece of art with the time you have, with the like using that kind of symbology. I think that's an interesting thing to think about, but that might be part of it. That could be part people were drawing cats quick and didn't care.
Well, especially because they're often the goofy looking animals are often very minor parts. They're not like at all the center of the drawing. So
that too.
It might be as well that you're dealing with a very small space with fast drying paints. You're just going to do the best you can. People will understand it's a cat, whereas you're going to put the majority of your efforts on Jesus or whoever's in the middle of your
Yeah, I
depiction,
mean, the
right?
Egyptians definitely made cats look better.
Yeah.
So it also, I think
It might be a priorities thing as well.
It's a priorities thing. It's the way that art works in those medieval manuscripts. It could also be really that they also weren't beloved as much in Europe.
I mean, again, that's just mostly
As,
because I
like-
want to tell the story of that one monk. I don't particularly think that's a super
I mean,
widespread belief there. They were
Not necessarily for all of them, but maybe for some of them.
for some of them, yes.
For some of, like,
could
you
be
can't
correct.
say maybe some guy really had it out for cats and drew the cat ugly.
But you can also say, and for the other animals, the ones that they never saw in real life, they might have actually just thought looked like that.
Oh yeah,
like
no,
rhinos and lions.
was a big one.
That might very well be that.
Horses are sometimes drawn weird. I don't know if it's because they haven't seen them. I think it's just because the horses are difficult to draw, probably.
Yeah, maybe it's like the cats where they're not usually the focus of the painting.
Maybe, but like definitely, like you said, animals
Just
that
the-
they haven't seen usually look very goofy because
Yeah.
a lot of it is based off of descriptions, like
And you're-
accounts you have,
and you're referring-
those don't necessarily give the right impression depending on who's reading. Especially like if you're trying to think of what a rhino looks like, but you don't actually know what a rhino looks like. It's an animal with rough skin, with like two horns. It's like I like even I'm having a hard time even describing what it looks like.
I mean,
and
Marco Polo thought they were unicorns when he came back from his journey. if I
potentially,
remember.
allegedly,
Allegedly.
but that is an interesting one to end on. I can present my pet theory on that one. Pets,
Yeah, that was a big theme. A lot of animals in
big
this
thing,
episode.
a lot of animals. No, I love it.
A lot of people like questions about animals. I think the one that the Satanic Panic and the influenza ones very much stand out, but I guess someone had an interest in that.
I mean, they're very. That's very recent history, I guess. I guess you wouldn't really have too many questions about. So in ancient Greece, did they do this?
Yeah, and
Not
I
as
think
relevant.
it's what people are looking at. Like I know the World War one was from.
I wish I could contribute more to the Arab world, though. The invention. I'm trying to like think of because I can think of a lot of like abstract innovations of.
But like concrete again, I know they perfected the astrolabe. I don't
Yeah,
know
they
exac-
perfected the
I don't remember what
astrolabe.
exactly they added to
I
it.
know they had a lot of developments in like irrigation technology.
Yeah, for the
especially-
quants and for in Mesopotamia and or like modern day Iraq there.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily the Arab world, but it might be even more Persian. I'm thinking of, but like the giant like buildings they'd have to like store ice to keep it like cold
that's
for a long
true, yeah.
time. Like that was like ventilated through like the wind, but it was like kept from the sun. Like a lot of that. Again, I don't know if that's necessarily Arab world, but I know that
Well, it's
is in a lot
Islamic
of-
world,
It's
isn't it?
Islamic world, and I do think that's very interesting. But yeah, I mean, I think that's one that we shouldn't assume that just because we haven't heard of like a certain culture contributing something that they haven't done anything.
No,
I feel like
it's
that's like the lack of evidence isn't evidence, which even then in this case there's a lot of evidence is just not looked into much.
I mean, they did a whole lot. They were a very literate culture. They has a lot of writings
Very
that
literate.
survived from that time, right?
Yeah, it's
A lot of ancient Greek manuscripts were translated into Arabic as well. That's how we have some of them today.
yeah, and we shouldn't underestimate anyone.
No.
People are people everywhere, so
That's the theme of today's episode. The dogs. Always love dogs. Doesn't
always
matter
love
what
dogs. People don't love cats.
People always be inventing
reindeers are
things.
cool. Llamas are cool. Influenza isn't cool.
Isn't cool. Satanic Panic, not really cool.
Not really cool, but very interesting to think and talk about. And oil paintings.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, thank you for the questions and
Of course.
thank you.
I might
for the
redo
answers
this
as well.
format in a while from
Well,
now.
let
but
me steal it first.
It's
I'll
a
try.
great format. I had a lot of fun researching
Yeah, this
like
would be,
little mini like vignettes of all these questions.
that'd be fun. And I think if we get enough listeners, we could
Put a poll
gather
out, yeah.
comments. You know, I think that'd be a fun thing to get into. Obviously, if someone's commenting it, they could look it up. But if you have a
Well, we
very nuanced question, it'd be good to think about. At least a question to have us talk about.
Or something kind of broad that has many answers, like how did the Satanic Panic start, where you could debate it a bit. That's fun too, I think,
That
because
is
then you
fun.
can come up with all our own perspectives on that.
Yeah, that's one thing we got to do. We got to come up with a debate. Where you like,
One day we should do that for a fun episode.
I'm sure we'll do that. But for now,
All right.
it's getting late. This has been a long episode.
This has been a long episode.
And we'll be around next week. It should be
With your topic.
yes, with my topic, which I guess I should give a little hint. Maybe I'll
Yeah.
give a little hint. It has something to do with the Iberian Peninsula.
Ooh, interesting.
Vague enough, but enough to know something. Yeah.
Comment your
later.
guesses down below.
Yeah, if you want to, if you want to.
If you want.
It'd be fun to see who's correct.
Yeah, it would be.
But yeah, we'll talk again later. Goodbye.
Goodbye.